Blessings, beloved. Jesus is the way and the truth and the life, and no man comes to the Father but through him. I just watched quite a lengthy and very disconnected, convoluted, in many ways nonsensical, inconsistent, rather concerning. I don't know if you could call it a speech. It was more like just lots of different disconnected words. Lots of divisiveness. Lots of jumping from foot to foot. Lots of unsureness from the person who's normally the Cian Corla, who alluded to secret deals and didn't actually say anything about what they might be, who's talking about a patriarchal society being a problem, who's talking about a national, publicly owned, non-patriarchal, non-gifted maternity hospital. Gifted by the nuns. Look, first of all, the public are the ones who give the state its power. So anything that's owned by the state is publicly owned, because the public give the state their power. The public fund anything the state owns. So what's the real move? If the public already own state-owned things because it's taxpayers' money who are the public, like, who's going to own it? Do you know what I'm saying? If it's the nuns gifting it to the public, whose name's going to be on the deed? Am I going to have a percentage? How is everybody in the country going to have a percentage in this, a stake in this publicly owned hospital? Are men excluded because they're patriarchal? Is it only the women who own the hospital? What percentage will each person get per capita? This is the most nonsense I've ever had to endure from somebody who's supposed to be operating and functioning in an office of state. The state of that office is one that is clearly corrupt. If something is owned by the state, it falls under the Constitution, just like if something is not owned by the state. Removing it from state ownership does not make it publicly owned, it makes it privately owned. To call something publicly owned that's privately owned is grand larceny. They're actually effectively removing it from public ownership when they remove it from state ownership. It's now privately owned. Unless, of course, you've got a stake in this hospital, have you? What percentage? No, I didn't think so. Is your name anywhere near the title or the deeds of this hospital? No, I didn't think so. When something is state-owned, it is publicly owned. When something is not state-owned, it's privately owned. A member of the public owning something means it's privately owned. The state owning something means it's publicly owned. This is the most convoluted, corrupt act of grand larceny I have ever had to witness. If something is said to be state-owned, who pays for it? The state? No. The taxpayer. The state work for the taxpayer. The state are publicly employed. It's called the public sector. It's called the service. They're in services, civil servants. They serve us. They work for the public. Don't let them pull the wool over your eyes on this. The only reason anybody would want to take a hospital out of state ownership is to avoid having to come under the Constitution and having to be answerable directly to the people operating in the state. But that's another facade. Simply because something is privately owned doesn't mean at all, in any aptitude or capacity, that it can ignore what is extant in the constitution of the state. Whether something's publicly or privately owned, in a state, it is subject to the constitution of that state. But what they're asking people to do is have legal contract with a privately owned hospital that they're calling publicly owned. Do you understand? You can call it what they want. Unless every member of Irish society has a stake in that building, it's not publicly owned. It might be owned by a member of the public, but that's the same as private. A member of public can own a house. That means it's privately owned, not publicly owned. If somebody tried to walk in off the street, you might call the police. Why? Because your privately owned dwelling, though you are a member of the public, is an inviolable place. So now you see why they're trying to manipulate these titles, deeds, and understandings of what it is to have a publicly, privately, or state owned place. Notice they haven't once mentioned the word private. Why? Because that's what they're trying to conceal. If something's not state owned, it's privately owned. And if it's privately owned, they want it to fall under legalities instead of laws. They want people to contract with them when they enter in under the roof. What would that change? It would mean that people were signing up to murder their children if they were going in there to have a procedure that would terminate the life of a growing baby in the womb. Because the laws that prevent killing of the baby in the womb are extant. That means they still exist. They can't be removed because the right to life is one that is imprescriptible. A referendum can't remove the right to life. So if somebody signs a piece of paper and says, I'm now writing up a contract that says you can kill my baby, they're just acting murderously. They're only employing a hitman. They now have a contract with a hitman that these criminals claim the state acknowledges. It's the same with the same-sex marriage thing. It's not constitutional because it can never be constitutional. So they know if we have this thing private, it gives us a bit of wiggle room. We can call it public because a member of the public owns it. Who exactly? Whose name is on the deed? Because they own it. So don't be deceived by the Ceann Comhairle, the current Ceann Comhairle, uttering these evils, uttering this unlawfulness. If something is owned by the state, it is publicly owned. If something is not owned by the state, it's privately owned. Again, unless you're claiming every member of the public of Ireland has a stake or a percentage in this building, how would that be organised? It's a nonsense. And that a Ceann Comhairle would be uttering such nonsense is criminal. Because it's a misuse of the office to disseminate mistruths about the reality of privately and publicly owning a building and the implications of both. Whether something is patriarchal or matriarchal, patriarchal means predominantly male run, matriarchal means predominantly female run. What are they trying to do? They did it with the abortion thing. They said, our bodies, our choice, but they relied upon the male vote to effectively commit an act of high treason on a grand scale. What are they doing then? Recruiting members of the public so that they can appear to meet critical mass, so that people would be afraid to go against the masses or the majority of the society. But who counted the vote? How do we know that the votes are genuinely counted? What system do we have of recording the votes that are available to everybody in society to look at. This many votes from here, this many votes from there, this many votes from here at that time. Who has access to this stuff but the members who are working in the office? And what if they're corrupt? We've no way of knowing if pro-abortion legislations were genuinely arrived upon or arrived at. But what we do know is that constitutionally speaking, an imprescriptible right cannot be removed by referendum, by nature of it being imprescriptible. So is the right to life imprescriptible? Yes. Did the preborn baby in the womb ever have the right to life recognised by Irish law? Yes. Therefore, this is an imprescriptible right to life of the preborn baby that cannot be removed by referendum. So what you've effectively seen is eugenicists infiltrate government and talk wishy-washy nonsense about public and private so that they can privately own a hospital, speaking about it being gifted by a group of nuns, which further indicates and implicates the nuns in the eugenicist agenda, which shows you that the Catholic Church is satanic, that the nuns are satanic eugenicists who are about the self-evolution of mankind and all of the satanic narratives and rhetorics. And of course, the feminist nuns, celibate feminine nuns, who spend most of their time in isolation, would outwardly be opposed to a patriarchal society when they're predominantly female run within their own circles. So you have a matriarchal organization handing or gifting something to the public. How does that work? Since when did the nuns have any say in what the state gives out? Since when did the nuns have any say in what the state gives over to a private entity? The nuns have no more say than you and I as a voter what happens to publicly owned state property. Because they're just citizens of the state. Because they choose to walk around with hoods on all day doesn't give them any more power as a member of the society. So I'm just exposing to you the level and degree of corruption that's currently going on in our government. It is a filthy and rancid cesspool of witchcraft and wizardry that is becoming rife and accelerating to a degree where they're heavily reliant upon your lack of knowledge on subject matter to pull the wool over your eyes. Something that is state-owned is publicly owned. To say that they're opposed to each other or mutually exclusive in any way is an utter lie on a basic and fundamental level. Who owns the post office? The state. Who pays for it? The public. So who owns the state? The public. So anything that's state-owned is publicly owned. Did you not know that? Did you not know that God Almighty institutes all the powers on earth and that he gives them to men to function and operate and run? So therefore men give the organization its power, so to speak, by ordering it according to how God has told them to order it. Otherwise, it's renegade. It is a rogue, witchcraft-run entity that has been infiltrated and usurped and is being gradually privatized so that the public don't have access. So they're privatizing things under the guise that they're being made public property. Would that surprise you that Satan would attempt to do that? Of course Satan's going to do one thing and tell you he's doing the other. He's a liar. Oh yeah, we're giving you this. It's publicly owned. See, look, your name's nowhere near the ownership. But it's yours. Isn't that good? This is the kind of psychological illness that the people who are in power have. They're psychopaths. It's not a joke. It gives them a kick that they can say things that are so blatantly nonsensical and people will believe them. They get a kick out of that because they would take credit from that. Look how silly and ignorant we've made them. Do you see now? If something is state owned, it is publicly owned. They're one and the same thing. A member of the public owning something means it's privately owned. If you own something, remember the public, does that mean everybody owns it? No. Exactly. Whose name is on the title? That's who owns it. The nuns can't gift anything to anybody because they don't own anything privately. Their institution owns the things. And many things the nuns and the Catholic Church have taken from the people through a false association with government. They have basically robbed wealth from the people, these paedophiles and these murderers of children. They have robbed, siphoned, like a parasite, sort of an institutional parasite, things from the general public of Ireland by siphoning money away to the institution through this false association between the Catholic Church and Irish government. There's no association between the Catholic Church and Irish government. Nowhere once is the Roman Catholic Church mentioned in the Irish Constitution. There is no existent, extant, or recognised relationship between the Irish government and the Catholic Church. There's a recognised correlation and connection between Christianity and the Irish Constitution, not Catholicism. The Vatican has nothing to do with the powers instituted on the earth. They don't give any power to anybody. But they've been siphoning money through these relationships with governments and states because they put the people in positions of power because they've infiltrated the state long ago. Now, what I'm trying to wake you up to now is that to call something public property because it's privately owned is a nonsense. When something's state owned, it's public property. The local hospital here is state owned. That means any member of the public can go in there any time because it's publicly owned. State owned and publicly owned is the same thing. They're trying to pull the wool over your eyes and tell you that privately owned is publicly owned. Don't buy it. The reason they want to do this is so that they can move things away from the state and sort of secretly, like they did with the laundries, it's a similar thing. This is a eugenics operation. Kill the babies, reduce the population. That's what it is, guys. Wake up. They were doing it then. This is just a different way of terminating them. They don't need the incinerator anymore to do it secretly. They can do it out in public because you bought the lie that they had your best interests. They kill babies to the demons they worship. Do you understand? Nuns are demon influenced, demon worshipping Satanists. The Bible says it very clearly: women should not veil, they should not cover their heads in the way that they do. Do you understand? They veil their faces. Look at their rituals. Go on. Veils. Nuns. They veil their faces. They're pagans. Let your women keep silent. They shall not teach, not permitted to teach. I have a picture here where the entire head is covered. Entire face. Cross hanging down around the thing. The big old key, you know, they had the big solid doors and the big old keys. The big old bell in this case. Yeah, they would lock those big old doors. and lock people in. Why? Because people were afraid to speak out and afraid to act out and say, we're not your slaves. They were afraid to stand up to them and say, we're not going to do what you think, what you say we should do, because you are murderous witches. And now it's the nuns again, pulling the strings and making the decisions. The ones who were killing babies, burying them, or incinerating them. You think it's a surprise now that they're still killing babies? That is the most corrupt, hideous, convoluted, intertwining, interwoven mass of thorned roots I've ever seen anybody try to verbalize in the form of the Cian Corla. It was a hideous mass of death wrapped up, and she was trying to verbalize it. It was going everywhere, forked tongue going everywhere, all sorts of bilge and bilious speak. And it didn't make any sense. So blah, blah, blah. She might as well have been saying. It was so disconnected. And she finished up by saying, publicly owned and is privately owned. Basically, something's publicly owned when it's state owned. A member of the public or members of the public owning something is private ownership. For example, say 7 people of members of the public own something. That means it's privately owned by those 7 people. Even though they're members of the public and there's more than one, doesn't make it publicly owned. And just because public have access to a place doesn't make it publicly owned either. People have public access to Tesco, but Tesco's privately owned. But Tesco, even though it's privately owned, have to abide by and comply with the laws of the state and adhere to the Constitution. So does a privately owned hospital. So it doesn't matter that they've done this. It changes nothing. Pro-abortion legislation is still unlawful. Abortion, as they would put it, is still murder. Now they're just doing it differently by pulling the wool over your eyes and telling you that to kill your baby is lawfully accepted. And not only is it lawfully accepted, they tell you it's progress, scientific progress, family management, family planning, and you're in your best interests. The nuns are still encouraging the butchery of babies. The nuns show up to save the day because we need this hospital so much. Another delay in the hospital. We need it. So what do? They create a demand for something so that they can rush something else. They create this perceived delay. Oh, we need it now. Just do whatever you have to do. So they pressurize you. They funnel you, usher you into a situation that's pressurized. Need somewhere to birth my child. Just sort it already. Okay, we'll sort it. Yeah, that's what we do. And then they get their way. And what it appears like they're giving you something when they're stealing from you. Why? By deception. They've deceived you in many ways. They've deceived you into believing that to kill your baby is progress and in your best interest because you should have an education because girls run the world. It's all feeding into the same insecurity now, the same rhetoric, the same agenda. A patriarchal society. It's all Beyonce shaking it, girls run the world. My body, my twerking, my spreading my legs with a man who doesn't care about me, who won't put a roof over my head, who won't put potatoes on the table. And then my going to the clinic and daddy supports me and will pay for it. But you said it doesn't matter what men say or do. And daddy also voted for it. But why would daddy have a say? It's your body, your choice. Why should he have a vote? Because we needed that to get it, like, oh. So daddy's a wallet and I tick the box. No, no. Daddies have manipulated you through your ignorance and miseducation into thinking that they're not involved in the murder of your child. But they've actually been the ones putting out the media that have led you to believe that they shouldn't be involved in it, so that they can stand back and appear as though they have a level of impunity and non-involvement in the killing of your baby when they're the ones that affected it. White gloves. The white glove treatment. They've organised it from their lodge rooms. They're tricking you. Because Jesuits who spend 13 years in schooling and education are pulling the strings. Intelligent men. Though they're chaotic and futile, they're Satan worshippers. They're the reindeers, they're the kings of the earth. And they're the ones who pay the heaviest price before the Lord Jesus. Listen, God will judge them, but he says they increase their harm. Listen now. Murder of the preborn baby is against the law in this state. No referendum can change that, because the right to life of the preborn baby is imprescriptible. Eugenicists have infiltrated media and government and are currently telling you that to kill your baby is not against the law of this land. This is very, very serious. It's treason. It's occupancy. They are criminal organizations occupying this state. They haven't fallen away. They've escalated what they're doing. Now they're using psychological manipulation on a grander scale than they were before, and they've gotten into your heads and your houses through your big TVs that keep getting bigger and better defined. And the wording's less defined. Picture's great though. Through your ignorance, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. Through your ignorance, they have led you to believe that killing your own baby in your womb is scientific progress. Progress in society. Good for the family. Let me tell you something. This is simple mathematics, and I'm not very good at maths. But even I know this. If a family have one child, the population is decreasing. I say, how is it decreasing? They've had a child. Yes, but families used to have 6 children, or 7, or 5. So there were more children than adults. So the population was growing. See how that works? Now there are less children than adults. So the population's decreasing. Parents die, they only had one child. That's a diminishment of the population. See how that works? So they're telling you and teaching you that you should have less children so you can have a bigger life, but this means a drastically reduced population. For example, period of 10 years, people were having 2 children. So the population stayed the same. 2 adults, 2 children, for example. Then suddenly they start having 1 child. Population's halved in 1 generation. Not noticeably yet, because the parents haven't died. They might be 50, 60, 70. Haven't died yet. But when they do die, many people are left. 1. Let's say they got married and had 1 child. See the point? It's a reduction in the population, because 2 families became 1 family with one child. Until you're saying, where have all the people gone? The nuns gave you a present of a privately owned public hospital that they told you was public property, and they were killing your babies. You weren't even having that many of them to begin with. But you should be allowed to be promiscuous, just not have children. We can't have these ignorant people having children anyway, they might say. They call you the silly goyim, they call you the cattle. And I'm trying to wake you up to it. Have nothing to do with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. It is against the law to murder a baby in the womb. And this cannot be removed by referendum because it's an imprescriptible right to life. How do we know when something's alive? It has blood coursing its veins. Leviticus 17:11 says, the life of the creature is the blood therein. They've led you to believe that a living creature is not yet a living creature with the right to life, but yet it needs to be killed. How can something that doesn't have life need to be killed? It does have life. Oh, but then it has the right to it. Oh yeah. How did they trick us into this? Miseducation. Netflix, soap operas, Home and Away, the things you watch the most. Through that, while the standard of education worsened, and they integrated gradually these narratives and rhetorics into the materials that they were teaching you in school. Anne and Barry went for a walk. Anne and Barry had an abortion. Get the point I'm making? That's all they had to do, was integrate these storylines into the materials you're watching and say, well, this is perfectly normal. They're not stupid, they're futile. There's a difference. Why are they futile? Because they're promoting death. They are death promoting death. Evil will consume itself. Do you want to be consumed by them? Along with them? I certainly don't. But I'm telling you, the only way to escape such people is to put your faith in Him. Jesus is the way and the truth and the life. They are death. Don't follow them or you will die. Eternally existing in chaos and destruction of your soul. So if you want to be saved today, the Bible says in Romans 10:9, it says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is with the heart that one believes and is justified, and it is with the mouth that one confesses and is saved. Private contracts made between two parties or three parties cannot have wordings that are against the laws of the land within which they have those contracts. Do you know that somebody who hires a hitman has a contract with them? Do you think it's a lawful one? It's not. Do you think that if somebody tried to amend it into legislation that it would suddenly become lawful? Or had a referendum that it would suddenly become lawful to hire hitmen to kill people? No, it wouldn't. Correct. Well, that's what they're doing to their babies, hiring hitmen to kill them. And now they want you to have a privately run hospital to go and have your baby killed in, gifted by the nuns. They were the ones killing the babies. Think there's a bit of a connection here? Wake up, folks. Jesus is Lord.